Our speaker today is Betty Ann Polaha. I hope I've got that correct. Who's going to be talking on personal stories. She has long been known for her creativity with fabric, and her house in the tree streets of Johnson City has a veritable revolving door of faithful patrons picking up hemmed pants, baby quilts, prom dresses, and old things made new. In the summer of 2015, she was inspired to take her creativity in a new direction and enrolled in storytelling classes at ETSU. She discovered a new passion, and now, in addition to her sewing, reading, and spending time with her grandchildren, you will find her rehearsing and delivering her stories, many of which are based on her life as a second-generation American and baby boomer. So, personal stories from Betty Ann Polaha.
She has opted not to get on the podium. I think the difference between a story and a sermon is the podium. I'm really happy to be here today, and it is Mother's Day, and how many of you are mothers? How many of you had a mother? On Mother's Day, we always talk about the sacrifices our mothers did for us, and I'm not going to enumerate all of them, but there's one maybe you haven't thought about. When our children are little and they're under our care and they live in our world, they're Betty Ann's daughter and Joe's son. And as they go through school, and probably as soon as high school, it starts to shift. When we're not privy to all their friends or all their friends' parents, they have their other little life that's going on in high school, you become Jody's mom, John's mom, Jen's mom. And it gets worse, especially if, like we did, we moved to the state of Washington where our son lived for about 10 years, and we had no friends of our own, and that's who I was, John's mom. And you get introduced that way, especially when one of John's friends is introducing you to another friend. He goes, "This is John's mom," and that's who you are. So we did the same thing. We moved here to Johnson City, where we didn't know a soul except our daughter, and I became Jody's mom. And if you come to Johnson City and you're looking for me, don't ask anybody if they know Betty Ann Polaha, because they'll say no. But if you say, "Do you know Jody's mom, Jody Jones's mom?" They'll say, "Oh yeah, I met her, I know her." And that's how you find me. And that's because my daughter Jody is here with me today, and it's Mother's Day, and she gave up her Mother's Day to bring her mother here. And I wouldn't be here today without her. And I wouldn't even be telling stories without her. So it's wonderful to have a daughter, and I like to honor my daughter and thank her for giving me a happy Mother's Day. And I like to thank you, too, because when we pulled up to the church today, there was my name on your board out there. I said, "Stop, we have to take a picture." It's my name. I expected to see today we have Jody's mom, and we didn't. The other funny thing is yesterday I was somewhere, and a man said, "Oh, there's a penny on the floor," and he picked it up and he said, "That's my mom. She passed away last year. She's leaving me change everywhere." And another woman said, "Well, my husband leaves me dimes." And I thought, And I was walking into your church today and I found a penny. So it might be my mom. So the stories I have for you today are personal stories, and they've all come to me since my mother passed a year ago in January. And previous to that, there was 8 years of total hard times. My mother had this colossal health issue, that went on. And whenever I heard my mother's voice or I heard my mother's name, I immediately tensed up with stress and guilt and what are we going to do now? What doctor said this and what medicine does that? And where should she live here and where should that? And for a lot of the time I was living out in the state of Washington and I had to deal with the guilt of not being there. And after she died and I heard her name, instead of feeling this immediate like anxiety and stress, she came back to me. She came back to me as my mother. And and because I'm in a church, I'm going to put a little sermon in here. If anybody's going through hard times with their parent or anyone, really, really try to remember before, and that will help you a lot. The first story I have for you today is called The Talking House. My mother and father bought their first house when I was 5, and I know that was a proud moment for my mother because previous to that, she was one of 11 children, and she didn't even have a high school diploma to make her way in this world. And now she was the proud owner of 618 Forest Street, a white frame Cape Cod with 2 bedrooms and 1 bath. And what was even better than that? She was married to a carpenter. So when she said, let's take the archway out between the dining room and the living room and make it all one room, it was easier done than said. And my mother always liked old wives' tales. She was always throwing them at me. But there's one that says, new houses bring new babies. Did you ever hear that one? I don't think my mother did, because that same year my brother was born. And my mother knew that he and I wouldn't be able to share that other bedroom indefinitely, so plans were made to build an addition. The addition took a while. My dad was busy with other things. But when the addition was finished, who knew? Additions bring new additions. And my brother Richard was born. Now, you would think if you had a growing family in a smaller house, you might think about getting a bigger one. My dad did. He'd always find a fixer-upper and promise my mom he could turn it into a castle. But those old wives' tales and sayings, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. My mother wouldn't move. And I'm pretty sure that my mother planned her pregnancies so that all of her children would fit in that house. Because the year that I left to go to college, my sister Lisa was born. And my mother treated that house like it was one of her children. She did. She gave it a bath once a week. She scrubbed and shined and polished. She had curtains for summertime and wintertime. Took them up, took them down, washed the windows. Every season, every summer, she scrubbed the front porch. She got all the porch gliders and all those chairs and plastic, scrubbed them all down, set them up, bring all the house plants out on the front porch. She had all these things that she did religiously. Took care of that house like she took care of us. The year I graduated from college was also the year that I got married. The house got a chance to repay my mother for all her love and care, because that was the year my 16-year-old brother was killed in a car accident on Mother's Day. The house wrapped its walls around my mother and allowed her to grieve, and she did for a long time. But my sister Lisa and my brother Richard were 5 and 9, and a house is not a home unless there's someone living there. And my mother came out of the bedroom and went on with her life. And the years that followed were happy ones, normal ones. We had holidays and birthdays. We had graduations. We had wedding showers and weddings and baby showers and grandchildren. And my parents joined a senior citizens group and traveled a bit. But one night, my mom, she must have forgotten to lock the back door because dementia crept in and stole my father. Stole him away, and in his place, he left this stranger who was irritable and nasty and abusive. And we were afraid for my mother, and we said, "Mom, this stranger needs to go to a nursing home." And my mother said, "Nursing home? Nursing home? Over my dead body? Nursing homes are expensive, and they take all your money, and then they take your house. I promised your father that he would die in his house, and I intend to keep my promise." For the next 4 years, my mother was a prisoner in that house. She couldn't leave unless my sister, my brother-in-law, a kind neighbor, sometimes 911, came to relieve her. By this time, my brother and I were living out of state, so we were of no help. When my father passed, we said, "Mom, it's time to live a little bit. Why don't you move to one of those senior communities where the women play cards and they go on bus trips? Why pay taxes and worry about heating bills and new storm windows?" And my mother said, "Excuse me, this is a church. Get the hell out of here. I own this house. I can get up in the morning when I want to. I can stay up at night as late as I want to. I can cook when I want to. I can cook what I want to. I can eat or not eat. I can watch TV as loud as I want to. I can watch what I want to watch. Why do I want to go listen to a bunch of women bitch and moan?" And so she stayed in that house. And things were fine for a while. And then her health fell off a cliff, and it would take me weeks to detail that. But suffice it to say that her first medical experience lasted 9 months. That was 9 months of either the hospital or rehab. When she got out, we brought her to my sister's house, which was open concept. You know how you hear about open concept on HGTV, how everybody wants open concept? Well, let me tell you, if you have a senior citizen in a walker who has trouble getting to the bathroom, open concept is not a good thing because nobody has any privacy. And the elderly person becomes the elephant in the room. And my niece was still in high school, and she wanted to bring her friends in, and it was awkward. And we hoped that my mother would see the truth, see what it was, and we hoped that she would offer to move to assisted living. But no, she had her own plan. I came to visit one weekend, and she said, "Take me to my old house. I just want to see. Come on, I just want to see. Take me over there, please. I just want to see." It made sense to me. I mean, if you hadn't seen your house and your things for 9 months, you'd want to see, right? So we shoveled her in the car and the walker and everything, and we got her over to the house, and we got the door open, and she walked in that kitchen. She pushed that walker away. She grabbed onto the furniture, and she furniture walked, and she made a beeline to the steps. And she grabbed onto the banister, and she pulled herself up to the second floor where the bathroom was, and she turned around and said, "See, I can do it. This is my house. I'm going to stay here and just try and get me out of it." And so she stayed in that house with the help of my sister, my brother-in-law, a kind neighbor, home health care, and I've fallen and I can't get up button. I don't know for sure if it was 1, 2, or 3 years that she made it like that. And that was part of the hard time, you know, the phone calls. Mom fell down and she didn't have the buzzer on, and it wasn't until my sister got there, all that stuff, and eventually She had to go to assisted living. She hated it. Hated it, hated it, hated it. It was hard because she couldn't hear and she couldn't see. So there weren't a lot of activities for her to take part in. And she would say to me, oh, I just want to go home. I just want to wash my own dishes. I just want to fold my own clothes. I just want to go home. And I got an idea. You know how we all try to fool our mothers. I went to the staff and I said, you know, my mom, she just want to make all these little crafty things. She just wants to fold her own wash. Don't you have any wash around here she could fold? Some towels maybe? And they said, oh yeah, we do that for the patients all the time. I said, good. You know, my mom will love that. So I went away thinking I had done something. And I came back the next time, and there's my mother. I just want to go home. I just want to do my own wash. I just want to fold my own things. I just want to wash my own dishes. I go to the staff, and I said, what happened? I thought we had a plan. And they said, we did. We tried. We took the towels into your mom to fold, and she said, what? I pay a fortune to live here. You want me to help do the wash? That was my mom. Well, her health didn't improve, and the money was running out, and it was going to be time to sell the house. So I came home one weekend, and I wanted to maximize my time because living in Washington State. And my mother was in Pennsylvania, so actually, no, I was in Tennessee by this time. And I went up there, and my sister and I, we were going through the house and trying to stage it or clear it out. And it came to be dinner time, and I said, Lisa, just you go home, and I'll just stay here, and I'll keep on working because I only have this weekend. And you know what? There's an Afghan here and a pillow. I'll just crash on the sofa. And tomorrow you can come back. And she said, okay. And she left. And I did. I kept working and working. About 11:30, I decided I was tired. And I got the pillow and I got the Afghan. I got the sofa. And I lay down on the sofa. The minute my head hit the pillow, the house started talking. And that corner over there said, where's Helen? It's almost Christmas. The Christmas tree has been in this corner for over 60 years. She has to put it up. And she has to put those little tiny pieces of tinsel on every branch. She does that every year, and every year after Christmas, she takes every one of those tiny pieces of tinsel off, and she saves them for next year. And that corner over there, the TV said, oh, quiet you. Helen and I had a relationship. Every night she pulled her recliner right up next to me. We turned up the sound all the way, and we watched game shows till 3 o'clock in the morning. And I miss her. Nobody even turns me on anymore. And the curtains said, what about us? What about us? We're the summer curtains. We're dirty. Nobody gave us a bath. Where are the winter curtains? They're supposed to take over. When is Helen coming back? And in the kitchen, the dishes I put in boxes started rattling and making this awful commotion. And they said, who took us off the shelf? Helen's going to have a fit when she comes home. We've been on that shelf for 50 years. You better put us back. When your mother gets home, you're going to get it. Everything in that house was talking to me. Everything. It was like your life was passing in front of your eyes, like they say, you know, in an accident. I saw myself coming down the stairs in my wedding gown, and everything. I can't even say that night. And on one hand, I wanted to stay, and on one hand, I wanted to run out of that house, but I didn't have a car and I couldn't leave. Anyway, my mother passed about 3 weeks later. She saved the house from the nursing home getting the money. And she had a bang-up funeral. She planned it herself and paid for it. There was a choir. It was an old-fashioned, funeral that people had back in the day. And there were flowers, and her grandchildren read the readings, and Jody gave a wonderful eulogy. And I was proud. I was happy for her because it was a culmination, a celebration of her life. And we were walking out of church, and the funeral director stopped me and said, "Is everything all right? Is there anything else I can do for you?" And I said, "There's one more thing." And I told him. And then I went outside and got in the limo my mother made sure we had. And she said that Lisa, Richie, and I would ride in the limo, and our husbands and family would be behind. And there was about 35 cars and following us. Friends, neighbors, and coworkers. And we got into the limo, shut the door, and the hearse takedown. We're going to go to the cemetery and do that thing. But the hearse turned the corner, went up the street, turned another corner, went down the street, and that street was 618 Forest Street. And we stopped in front of my house, my mother's house, to give her a chance to say goodbye. And that's the story of the talking house.